are these stretches where the water is shallower and it's flowing fast over the rocks. And this is probably a good place to demonstrate how we sample them. What we're wanting to do in this case is get the water bugs that are living in the rocks or in the water that's flowing over the rocks. And what we'll inevitably notice is that we're getting a really different suite of invertebrates than what we got in the pool. Obviously the habitat's very different. We will get some similar things to what we had in the pool, just different quantities. Some things will be missing and other things will probably be more abundant, but we'll find out. So together the riffle sample and the pool sample give us an overall picture of the stream health based on what water bugs we're catching. To do this one, 10 metre distance again, give or take. About 10 samples again with the net over about 5 minutes, or however long it takes you, 5-10 minutes. This time though it's a bit more involved. In order to catch the bugs that are living in the rocks, they need to be washed off the rocks. That's why it's called kick sampling. So the reason we use these particular nets is because they're flat bottomed. And that means that you can put them on the substrate and anything that's washing downstream will have a better chance of getting caught in the net. It'll obviously be a lot harder using a round net. So hence that's why they're triangle shaped. Once you've got your net on the substrate, the way that you sample is by gently but otherwise somewhat vigorously disturbing the rocks right in front of the net. So the net's pointing upstream because the water's going to wash the invertebrates downstream into the net. And you're kicking for an area of not much more than 1 metre in front of the net to wash those invertebrates off the rocks, and they're going to sweep straight into there, apart from obviously the ones that go to either side. The other way of doing it is to physically wash the rocks with your hands in the water. Particularly if you've got bigger rocks that are harder to kick, you might pick them up and then wash underneath them quickly, and that'll dislodge any invertebrates that are holding onto them and they'll sweep into the net. So that's one sample. Go up your next metre and so on till you get to about 10 metres. Exactly the same otherwise. Fill your trays up first, and after a few samples, dump it into the tray. And that'll be your kick sample. While I'm down here, I will show you one other neat trick using a different type of net. So a few people asked about this thing. It's called a Serber sampler. And it's exactly the same concept, except this is what tends to get used more in very precise scientific studies because it gives you an aquatic quadrat to sample from. The idea is that you configure it in exactly the same way, facing upstream, so invertebrates get washed downstream into the net, put it on the substrate, and then all the rocks within that quadrat get washed or kicked. And any inverts will end up in that bottom part, which can be screwed, unscrewed, and emptied into the tubs. We've only got one of these just for a demo. So, funnily enough, there have been some recent studies that have actually found using those dip nets doesn't get you much worse results than using the servo sampler.
Are they expensive?
They are much more expensive. Hence why you've all got dip nets. But the good news for us is there often isn't a lot of difference in what you catch.
Yeah.
So at least for this purpose, because we're most interested in finding out what species are here, not necessarily how many of each species. If we were doing a study on abundance, maybe using the servo sampler would be more useful. But anyway, so there's another technique that we don't have here. It's called a Hess sampler, but I might describe it to you because it's pretty straightforward. It's a metal cylinder with a net coming out the base of the cylinder in a similar way, and all you do is like a bit of a washing machine. It's got metal teeth at the base of it, and it digs into the substrate, and you twist it around and knock all the rocks inside the cylinder to wash the inverts out, and they'll end up in the net of the attached to the cylinder. So that's a Hess sampler. Same concept. It's a discrete area that you're sampling, so you get a quantitative, a representative sample of what's there for the subset of the habitat that you're taking your sample from.
Fantastic.
All right, so you just have to get down here now.